Okay. And so I want to share with you two very special stories about a tzaddik whose name was Rabbi Moshe Galante. Rabbi Moshe Galante lived about 350 years ago. And his grandfather learned Bechavrusa with the holy Beis Yosef, with Rabbi Yosef Karo in Tzfas. And actually his grandson, I don't know if it's his grandson or maybe a great-grandson, was known as the Tzfas Emes, who lived in Europe, a big Hasidic Rebbe. Or Moshe Galante, the tzaddik, he was born in Damascus in Syria, which is, for those that know a little bit of geography, Syria is right above Eretz Yisrael. So if you go hiking all the way up into the north of Eretz Yisrael, all the way to the tip top of Eretz Yisrael, and then you go a little further, you're in Syria, and there's a city called Damascus. And even though Rabbi Moshe Galante came to Yerushalayim and he became the head Rav of Yerushalayim, he still used to go back to Damascus and visit there. So this first story happened one time when he went to go visit Damascus. While Rabbi Moshe Galante was there, he was known as the Rabbi Rav HaMagen. Could be it's because he had a sefer that he wrote called the Elef HaMagen. So he used to be called Rav HaMagen. So when he was there in Damascus, the Rav HaMagen, Rabbi Moshe Galante, he heard that there was an Arab Sheik who was there who had very, very special, miraculous healing powers. I'm sure you've heard of Rabbi Hanina ben Daisa, the big tzaddik in the Gemara. And Rabbi Hanina ben Daisa used to be able to tell different people that when they would come and they would say, "Can you please daven for me?" Rabbi Hanina ben Daisa would be able to say, "You're going to live, you're going to die." But Rabbi Hanina ben Daisa wasn't able to cause a person to live or die. It was just that he was able to tell when he had a good davening and the tefillah was smooth on his lips, then he knew Gevalt Hashem was going to answer those tefillahs. But when he didn't have a good davening, when it wasn't smooth, Hashem didn't allow the words to be smooth on his lips, he knew the person was going to die. And you know, this sheikh had that power. People would come to him and he would say, "This one's going to live and this one's going to die." And it was very strange. How did his words always become true? Now, this sheikh was known that he knew all the 7 branches of wisdom in the world. And everybody said that he was a very, very holy sheikh. He would never even leave his house really very often. So Rav Moshe Galante was very curious. Rav Moshe Galante was very curious. And he wanted to meet this sheikh. So, please don't do that. It makes it shake. So he wanted to know, Gewalt, I need to come meet the sheikh. So what's going to happen? So he said, I'm going to arrange a meeting. He sent, there's the leading of the Jews, the head of the Jews in the city of Damascus was called a Parnas. The Parnas was the one who would take care of everybody in the community. And so Rav Moshe Galante asked him, said, "Can you please go to the sheikh tell him that you have a very wise Jew from Yerushalayim who also knows all of the 7 worldly wisdoms. Can you go and tell the sheikh that I'd like to meet him?" So the Parnas went to the sheikh, and he comes in and he tells him, there's a big tzaddik, and the sheikh says, "What's his name?" He said, "His name is Rav Moshe Galante." And the sheikh said, "I've heard of him. I would like to meet him as well." So the next day, Rav Moshe Galante comes into the special villa of the sheikh, and it's beautiful, and they sit down in the beautiful gardens, and they have some coffee, and the sheikh asks him, says, "I hear you're such a wise man. Do you know this and this wisdom?" And he starts asking him tons of questions. And Rav Moshe Galante said, "Baruch Hashem, Hashem gave me a little bit of knowledge about this wisdom, and I'd be happy to share it with you." And so the sheikh asks him questions more and more. And the sheikh got so excited because how many people in the world are so knowledgeable? They know so much. But Gewalt, now he met a friend, and he's making a new friend of somebody who he could talk about these things. So the sheikh said, "I see that we're going to be good friends. Maybe you could come again. Maybe we could even meet once a week." Well, a few days later, Rav Moshe Galante came once again. And they talked, and they were sitting on the cushioned pillows, and they were schmoozing for hours. But still, Rav Moshe Galante couldn't figure out what's special about the sheikh. He's very smart. He has a lot of wisdom. But how does he know? How does he have this power of being able to say who is going to live and who is going to die? Well, after meeting a number of times, the Sheik said, I have to tell you the truth. The truth is that in this last branch of wisdom, I'm lacking some information. I need you to help me open up, but it's not just information. I need you to help me open my mind. Do you think that you can help me open my mind in this way? Rabbi Moshe Galante said, yeah, I could. I do know about it, and I could tell you. And the Sheikh Mamash begged, said, please, I'll give you any amount of money in the world, but please share with me this wisdom. Rabbi Moshe Galante said, I'll tell you the truth. This wisdom is not the kind of wisdom that you could sell, but I see that you're very, very serious about it. I'll tell you what. I'll make you a trade. I'll tell you this wisdom. If you tell me, I hear that there's a special wisdom that you have, that you can mamish see the Sefer HaChaim VaHaMaves, the book of life and death. And you could know when somebody comes to you if they're going to live or if they're going to die. And if you tell me this wisdom, said Rabbi Moshe Galante, I can also teach you what I know. The Sheikh sat back down in his seat. You know, I don't think I can tell you this. It's forbidden. It's forbidden. I can't tell it to any person in the whole world. So Moshe Galante said that the wisdom that you're asking for also is so pnimi. It's so heilig. I can't either reveal it to you. But the only reason why I could is maybe because I've made a promise to my grandparents that not to share this wisdom, but maybe because you have something special to share and it would make both of us better, maybe that would be a good reason to break my promise. And the Sheikh said, I also promised not to tell it. Let me think about it. So they sat and they both sipped their coffee. And finally, the Sheikh said, I'll tell you what. I could tell it to you, but the risks are very, very, very great. Are you willing to accept these crazy risks? So Rabbi Moshe Galante said, yes. And the Sheikh said, here's what you have to do. Go back home, and the sun is about to set. And I want you for 2 days, night and day, both times, to not eat anything. And during these 2 days, I want you to do tshuva, and I want you to fix anything that's wrong inside of you. And imagine, this is the Sheikh telling it to Rabbi Moshe Galante. And on the last day, you can eat, but don't eat meat and don't drink wine, and dress in your nicest clothes. And then you can come on the 3rd day and come to me. So Rabbi Moshe Galante agreed. And the Sheikh said, Lech l'shalom, go in peace, and I'll see you in a few days. Rabbi Galante returned home, and he mamish did it. And he spent 2 days in tshuva, in tefillah, not eating and not drinking, just like we all fast on Tisha B'Av, but he did it for 2 days in a row. And he said, he davened to Hashem, he said, Hashem, please make me humble, make me open, make me a kli to receive, because I don't know what wisdom this guy, this Sheikh has, but Hashem, I want to be closer to you. Please help me to be humble and to be, like it says in Mishnah and Avos, to learn from every person in the world. Well, after 2 days, Rabbi Moshe Galante said, I'm not going to even eat now. I'm going to stay in my fast. And the next morning he comes, and it's the 3rd day, and he comes in, and the Sheikh looks at him and sees how weak and how tired and how hungry Rabbi Moshe Galante is. And the Sheikh says, I see you did as I asked you. And Rabbi Galante said, yeah, and I'm still fasting now. So the Sheikh said, come and follow me. And they went to a special room where he said, I'm the only person in the whole household that has this key. And they open the door, and they come into a hallway, and he locks the door behind them both. Then they come to a second locked door, and they unlock it. And it opened into a beautiful garden. This garden was so nice. In the middle of the garden, there's a spring of fresh water, and there were mamish butterflies dancing around in the air. And the spring was flowing into a pool before continuing along. And Gavalta, next to this pool, was 2 white, beautiful robes, and they were sitting there on the bench. And the Sheikh says, come, we have to go. We're going to toivel in this mikvah, and then we could put on these special white clothes. So quietly, They each went into the water and they toveled in the mikvah and they put on these beautiful brand new garments. And you could imagine Rav Moshe Galante was so curious. What in the world is this? And so they go behind a few trees. There was a building, a small little building, beautiful building. And the doors on this building were made of pure silver with beautiful engravings all over these doors. And the Sheik said, shh, beware. And you can only enter into this room if you mamish have yira. Mamish yira shamayim you have to have with real fear, with real trepidation, because you can't go in here if there's no jokes in such a room. And the Sheikh opened the door, and Gewalt, it was so beautiful inside, and it mamish smelled like Gan Eden. And in the chamber, there was a beautiful curtain with precious stones, and the Sheikh bowed down on the floor 7 times. And Rav Moshe Galante froze. Who knows? Is there an Avodah Zarah inside? We know that the Arabs, they don't bow down to Avodah Zarah. They also serve the same Hashem that we serve. But why is he bowing down? And the Sheikh motioned for him to bow down, and his head begins to swim. And he knew that the Sheikh wasn't Avodah Avodah Zarah, so he says, okay, Shivisi Avaya Lenegdi Summit, I'm putting Hashem before me always. And he bent himself down a little bit. And the Sheikh said, you can enter, and you can see the secret that you seek. And Rav Galante stood up, and he pushed aside the curtain and entered the special chamber. And on the walls, there were tapestries of gold and silver. And there, directly across from him, was a beautiful gold engraving of a menorah. And on top of the menorah, there were 4 words, Shivisi Havaya Lenegdi Samid. And it mamish said Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey in big, big letters. And you could imagine Rav Moshe Galante was so joyed to see this. He Gewalt, and he bowed down, and he davened to Hashem, and he thought, Hashem, Gewalt, you're the creator of the whole world. And outside in the garden, Rav Moshe Galante turned to the Sheikh. He said, you told me that inside the chamber I'd find the answer, but I saw with my eyes, but I didn't understand. The Sheikh says, my dear friend, let me explain something to you. Those 4 letters that you saw, that is the name of the creator of the world. And so Moshe Galante obviously knew this as a Yid. So he said, he's looking like, and what? He said, and every time that I'm asked to daven for a sick person, I come and I prepare myself and I go into the mikvah and into the pool that you saw outside, and I come into this chamber and I close my eyes and I daven. I say, Master of the world, creator of the world, I'm davening for this person who's sick. And I daven with all my heart. And when I open it, I look at this beautiful gold Yud-Kei Vav-Kei on the wall, and I see one of 2 things. If the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey are shining and there's sparks of light coming out of it, I know that this person's going to live. But Gewalt, if it's dark and it's cloudy, I know the person's going to die. And with this, I've revealed to you a secret that no other human being knows. When Rav Moshe Galante went back to his residence, he sat down and he ripped his shirt and he started to cry and he said, Oy lanu, what's happened to us? Look at this guy. He honors the name of Hashem to such an extent. He's privileged to have such heavenly secrets. Shemayim opens up to him and reveals him the secrets. And he's able to see if a person's going to live or die. But look at us. We're in Galus. We don't have the Beis HaMikdash anymore. And we don't even appreciate the holy name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even in Shul, we also have the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei in front of us. But are we filled with Yira V'Fachad before we go into it? Do we daven to Hashem with this level of awe, with this level of fear, with this level of recognizing how great Hashem is? And Gewalt, you should know that this is mamash part of the reason why we're crying over now on Tisha B'Av. On Tisha B'Av, we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. But Gewalt, when we had the Beis HaMikdash, every Yid would do this. Every Yid would have to go to mikvah to make sure that he's tahar. and we'd go into the Beis Hamikdash, and we'd put our eyes and we'd be able to see, we'd see the Kaihanim doing the Avodah, and the Leviim singing, and we would mamish see the HaKadosh Baruch Hu would be right there. This Arab, this Sheik, he had a little place that he made into a Mikdash Ma'at. And even now, how many of us are not able to go to shul? We're not able to go to the Batei Midrashim. Al Eila ani b'chia. This is why we're crying on Tisha B'Av. But you should know that when we cry and when we daven, we could bring it back. The return has begun. We've come back to Eretz Yisrael, and we're slowly building up the places that have been broken down. So many Batei Knesias and Batei Midrashas that have been broken down are being rebuilt. And Baruch Hashem, this is our chance. This is our chance, Chavra. We need to daven, we need to do mitzvahs, we need to have shalom. And Be'ezus Hashem, all of these secrets, this closeness of tefillah will once again be open with us, close to Hashem. I would like to share one more story from Rabbi Moshe Galante as well. And this story really is a story of, it's a story I'm going to tell you one time that happened with Rabbi Moshe Galante. But really, the story has happened so many times throughout our history, and we need to know that this is mamish in our hands as well right now. Rav Moshe Galante was in Yerushalayim, and it was the winter, but there was no rain. And we all know how in Eretz Yisrael we need to daven for rain, and the whole country knows. We even have a whole Masechta in the Gemara. Maseches Tainus is focused on our davening for rain. That when there's rain, if there's not enough rain, we need to fast and we need to daven. But Gevalt, Hashem listens to us. Hashem listens to our tefillos. And so the winter was nearly over, and there was no rain. And it was critical. It was critical times. And not only were the Yidden davening, but the Goyim, the Muslims, they were in their mosques, in their masgad, and they were davening. And the Christians were in their churches and they were davening. Everybody was davening to the one that they daven for. But Gevalt, we all know that Hashem listens to our tefillas. And we davened in our shuls, and we davened by the Kaisel, and we davened by David HaMelech's Kever, and we davened by Kever Rachel in Beis Lechem, and we davened in Chevron. But still the Shemayim was beautiful blue skies and not a drop of rain to be found. The Pasha, who was the Muslim, the Arabic leader, he didn't know what to do. And of course, you could imagine that people start getting angry and frustrated, and the Pasha was getting worried. And so the Pasha called that Rabbi Moshe Galante, the Rav of the city of Yerushalayim, should come into him. And when Rabbi Moshe Galante came in, the Pasha screamed, "You are the guilty ones, you Jews! It's your fault there's no rain. And you've cursed all of us. You have 3 days. 3 days. If there is rain in 3 days, then you can be allowed to stay. But if not, we will kick you out of the city. We will beat you. We will kill you." The Pasha said this to Rav Moshe Galante. Rav Moshe Galante came home and he called all the Yidden of Yerushalayim and he said, "Yidden, we have to daven to Hashem. And there's going to be a 3-day fast. But you could only have to fast from morning until night. But we all must gather in the shul, and we have to all daven. Men, women, and children, even little children are not allowed to eat." And so they all gathered together. And you can imagine it's so hot. The sun is burning just like it is here now in Eretz Yisrael. But they didn't have air conditioning. And the days were dragging by, and their dry lips cracked as they davened, and they said Tehillim countless times, and they cried out to Hashem, "Avinu Malkeinu, please, please save us. We need rain, and we need it, or we're going to be killed, and we're going to be kicked out of Yerushalayim. How many times have we been kicked out of Yerushalayim? Please, not again." And Gevalt, they just all davened together. But the sun was still shining so brightly. So brightly. It was hurting them. It was hurting their eyes. It was hurting their hearts. At the end of the 3rd day, Rabbi Moshe Galante said, "Everybody go home and put on your rain clothes, put on big coats, anything that's going to protect you from the rain, and come, we're all walking together." And everybody gathered together in Yerushalayim, and they began to walk down to the kever of Shimon HaTzadik. Right? We all know Shimon HaTzadik is mamish buried right by Yerushalayim, but in the old city, they had to go out of the city down to the caver. And everybody cried out, Rabbi Moshe, are you a Navi? Wait, we should put on rain clothes? What, are we crazy? We're going to be killed. We should run. We should leave now already. But the Rav said, no, I'm the Rav of the city. Rabbi Moshe Galante said, I'm the Rav and I'm telling you what to do. Get your rain clothes and follow me. And so they put on their boots and their coats and their scarves and rain hats. And hundreds of Yidden start marching out through the Damascus gate. And you can imagine the Turkish guards, they saw this, and he started laughing at them. And he was laughing, he couldn't believe it. He walked up to Rav Moshe Galante and said, you guys are crazy, and he smacked Rav Moshe Galante across the face. The Rav didn't say a word. He kept on walking in silence, and they came down into the valley until they came to the caver of Shimon HaTzadik. And without a word, Rav Moshe Galante fell on his knees, and he started kissing the tombstone of Shimon HaTzadik, and he started crying and begging Hashem, Hashem, please, please. And everybody started crying, the men, the women, the children, and Gevalt, the sounds of the tears and the tshuva went straight up to Shemayim, out of the cave of Shimon HaTzadik, and mamash straight up into the sky. And suddenly huge gusts of wind began to blow, and dark clouds began to come over the entire city of Yerushalayim. The trees began to sway, and everybody looks up to Shemayim, and suddenly it's raining, and from tears still on their faces, they started laughing. Hashem, you listen to our tefillos. And they started dancing in the rain, but the rain didn't stop. It increased, and it was pouring and pouring, and the Yidden had to bundle their coats, but Gevalt, they had the biggest smiles on their faces. And the Yidden began to walk back up to their homes in Yerushalayim. And the Turkish guard, breathless, he couldn't believe it. And he fell at the feet of Rav Galante as the ground was turning to mud. And he said, Holy Rabbi, please, please forgive me. And the sentry picked Rav Moshe Galante up on his shoulders, and they marched into the city. All the Muslims and all the Christians came out of their homes, and they saw what was happening. Rav Moshe Galante and all the Yidden in their coats, and Rav Moshe Galante on the shoulders of this big soldier. And they carried him to his house. The rain did not stop for 3 days and 3 nights. And Gevalt, you could imagine by the end of it, you already saw the shoots of new plants, of new growth coming from the ground. On the 4th day, this Turkish guard came into the house. He came into Rav Moshe Galante's house. And he had mamash spent these 3 days just blown away by the nisim and by the fact that everybody saw this, that Hashem answered the tefillas of Am Yisrael, not the tefillas of the Arabs and not the tefillas of the Christians, but the tefillas of Am Yisrael. And he said, please, this guard said, Holy Rabbi, I would like to become a Yid. I've seen the miracles of Hashem. I would like to become a Ger and to become a Yid. And he ended up becoming the personal shamish of Rabbi Moshe Galante for the rest of his life. So, boys and girls, and I'm speaking to myself and to all of us, we need to know in the deepest parts of our hearts how much Hashem loves us and how much Hashem listens to every tefillah. There's no bracha, there's no tefillah, there's no tear that goes unanswered. As you remember the story of the river of tears, every tear is collected. We know that sometimes even the gates of Shemayim, all the gates get closed, but the Sharei Demais is never closed. And every tear that you cry, and today if you end up crying for any reason, if there's any tears, just remember, and anytime, not just today, but anytime, remember Hashem is always listening to us. And anytime, no matter where you are, you can daven to Hashem, and Hashem will answer. And you should know that for thousands of years, we've been davening, Hashem, please bring us back to Eretz Yisrael, and nobody believed it. None of the Goyim believed it, even though, as Rabbi Yaakov told us, a special story about Napoleon, how Napoleon believed it and saw it. But Gevalt, we should know that we're back in Eretz Yisrael after 2,000 years, and even though we don't have the Beis HaMikdash yet, but we will have it. And we will have Mashiach, even though he's not here yet, but we will have Mashiach. It's all coming true and in our lives, and we're seeing it. So Chevra, let us be sad on Tisha B'Av for what we don't have, but let us thank Hashem and let us cry and daven that it should come and it should happen. B'mheira b'yameinu, amen ve'amen. You know, I'm going to share one more story with you. It's a bit of a short one, but my son Shlomo asked me before to share it, and I'm going to share it. So, no, not that one.
Could you after? You have to finish it for me. It's not fair.
So, this story was about a special Yidala. This Yidala, he didn't really know how to daven. He didn't really understand the meaning of the words, but he would always come into Yerushalayim. And whenever he would come into Yerushalayim, he lived outside Yerushalayim. He was a farmer, and every time he would come into Yerushalayim, he'd come to the Rav, and the Rav would show him and mark out for this next week, what should you daven on Yom Rishon, what should you daven on Yom Sheni, every single day. And that way, whenever it was Rosh Chodesh, the Rav would show him what to daven. And whenever it was Yom Tif, he always knew everything what to daven. Well, one time, he comes into Yerushalayim, and he sees that nobody is there. The streets are empty in the Jewish neighborhood of Yerushalayim. And he goes, what's going on? Did something happen? And he sees a Yidla running there with his talis and with his tefillin. And he gets worried. What's going on? Is today a Yom Tif? Is today a fast day? What's going on? Why are people davening? I didn't know about any of this. And he goes running to the Rav and he says, Rav, what's going on? You didn't tell me that today's a special day? And the Rav says, don't worry, it's not a special day. There's no special tefillas. He said, so why did I see that nobody's in the fields and nobody's working? All the shops are closed. So the Rav said, well, we don't have rain. And so we enacted that for the people that live inside Yerushalayim, we're going to make a fast day. And we're going to fast and we're going to daven and everybody should close their stores. But don't worry, there's nothing wrong with it. So the Yidala looks at the Rav and he says, for no rain, you fast? That's weird. And the Rav looks at him and says, weird? Schuldigs. But what do you do when there's no rain? He says, what do you mean? I go into the field and I look up and I say, Abba Sheba Shemayim, my father who cares about me, my fields, they need rain. Please send some rain. Please pour rain down on my field. And Hashem sends a cloud and it rains. You can imagine the Rav's eyes bulged out of his sockets. This simple Yidala? So the Rav didn't want to mess anything up. And he says, you're 100% right. Would you do that for us? And the Yid says, yeah, for sure. I don't know why you don't do it, but okay. And so the Yid goes outside and he takes off his shoes and he stands in the field and he says, Hashem, please, all the people of Yerushalayim, all of your children, your beautiful, sweet sons and daughters, your boys and girls that are living in the city of Yerushalayim, they need your rain. Hashem, please give rain. And suddenly the clouds come and start pouring rain. It's so simple. It's such a simple story, Yisrael says. It's so true. But the pasha thing is you should know, we need to mamash have emunah and know Hashem listens to every single one of our tefillas, no matter how big or how small. Even if you think that you're something special, you're not. You should know Hashem loves every one of us. And to an Abba, every one of his kids are very, very special. And Hashem is our Abba and our Ima. So remember, there's not one word that comes out of your mouth that Hashem's not listening to. Every bit that you're feeling in your heart. And speak it out, and you'll see miracles. You'll see nisim. Hashem listens to all of us. Baruch Ata Hashem Shemea Tefillah.